Guys, it's the founder of Developers Academy, and in this video I have 5 steps I want to share with you about how to build a photos gallery app with TableView in iOS. Along the way, we'll learn everything you need to know about TableView. As you may know, TableView is one of the most beautiful and powerful and popular UI in iOS. It is used everywhere. You find it in Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of the apps out there. It is using UITableView. The question is, how can you do that as a developer too? So in this video, I want to share with you what I learned and what I created with TableView by building a photos gallery app. So let's get into the demo immediately. Before we do, let's download all of the resources, the starter project with some of the custom code that arrive for you. Just some simple one with the resources that can save us some time. So click the link on this page on this video and download the resources first, and I'll see you in the demo. Let's get into that.
Okay, my friend, let's open up the starter project that you can download right down below on this page. Now, this is a scratch main.storyboard. We don't have anything here yet. Let's go over the asset.exe asset. Here we have 11 images that for our apps gallery, right? For our photos gallery. Now, all of these images are, yes, they are real-world application, real app that we'll build together in TotalIOS Blueprint. Those are beautiful images. All I did is to run it on an iPhone and then take a picture of that, just like that. So those images are from 1 to 11. Now, if you go into the app.swift here, all it is it contains 2 structures. Number 1, it is an abstract that has the name. An app has a name, has a level, right? Kind of like a beginner level or advanced level for how to build it. And it has an image name. Of course, this is from 1 to 11. And then, because our data structure, we are trying to display an array of apps. That's why we have a TIB, stands for TotalIOS Blueprint Apps. And we have a static function that get all the apps, return for us an array of apps like this. Inside here, all we did is we returned an array of apps. So we have like heads up, question, game generator, level is beginner, image name is 1, all of those things. Okay, so that is our data model. So this is how our complete project looks like. It has a beautiful table of photos gallery. For each of the for each of the image, it has a label like this. If you look closely, each label has beautiful shadows. I will show you how to do that too. So this is how our project looks like. Now, step number 1 is we need to design our simple app UI. By simple, I mean something like this, so that we can learn about TableView. Okay, so let's go over the main.storyboard. Here we go. First step, I want to embed this guy on a navigation controller so that we have that navigation bar like this guy. Okay, and then I will configure this navigation bar by selecting the navigation bar inside this navigation controller. Go over this attribute inspector, and then let's change it into black. Looks good. Next up, we have, how about we change our title color into white? Let's change that into white color. How about the font? We want to change it into system, and then we change it into custom again. And I want to use Avenir next. Let's use demi bold. Size is 19. Done. Alright, so that we configure this status bar. Next up, I want to change this title into TotalIOS Blueprint 2, like that. Then our navigation bar is good to go. Now, when we go back into our complete project, we have each of these things is a table view. We use a table view, and the simple app UI will look something like this, right? So all we have to do is go over here, search for a table view, and then I will drag out a table view to the screen like this guy. Alright, next up, we have to apply auto layout to this guy so that our table view here, it's simply a view. It's simply a view that it will attach to the 4 edges of the screen. So let's apply auto layout for this guy. Over here, we have uncheck all of these things, 0 to the top, 0 to the left, 0 to the right, and 0 to the bottom. Make sure that they are all 0, okay? And then check these things, and we'll update the frames for all the items of the container. There we go. Then we have the table view. Now, before I go into each element of the table view, let's just click this table view first, and then over the right hand side here, you will see that we have the attribute inspector, we have the table view, the content, it says dynamic prototype. What that is, I will share with you that in just a moment, so be patient with me, okay? Next up, let's change the prototype cells into 1, okay? And why is that? I will share with you in just a moment, so don't worry. Next up, I will select this cell right here when it displays the cell. Select this cell. All it says is it is a table cell, like a cell in your spreadsheet, right? Select this cell, and then over here in the attribute inspector, I will change the style of this UITableView cell into basic. And it has other style too. It can has right detail or subtitle, which is this detail over here. But I want to use basic. All right. Now it's time for us to talk about some UITableView concept. Number 1, this is the contacts app in our iPhone. Very simple, right? But it is a UITableView, and you see that this UITableView, as like in most UITableView, it is divided into different sections. So a table has different sections. In this case, we have different sections for this context, right? Because it is context, it is names. So we want to divide those into different alphabetical order. So each section inside this table view is what? Yeah, each section in this table view is a letter. So we have A section, B section, H section. And now notice that the section of the table view has its index. So the index is from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Lastly, we have each of the section, we have a row. Each of the section has multiple rows. So for the A section here, we have 1 row, B section we have 1 row, H section we have 2 rows. Now for this H section, the index of the row is also indexed from 0, 1, 2, 3. So for the H section, Anna is indexed as 0. Daniel is indexed at 1, and so on and so forth, right? So that is the UITableView. So that is our UI, the very first simple UI. Let's select this table view cell, and then over the other side, on the attribute inspector, it has an identifier. What that is, we'll tell it in just a moment, but we'll tell it as the app cell like this, because it is a table view cell and display an app. Alright, now it's step number 1 is to design our simple app UI. Let's go into step number 2 is to create our AppsViewController, because we are going to follow the MVC here. We have the model is our app, we have the view is our table view, our main storyboard, and now let's create a view controller. So I will right click onto this app, new file, Cocoa Touch class. This class is going to be a subclass of UIViewController, like this, and we'll call this guy AppsViewController. Next, let's put it right there, and we create. Alright, so let's go back into main storyboard. We'll assign this class to be a AppsViewController, right? Assign it to be an AppsViewController, and then let's open up the assistant editor, like this guy, and then all we need to do here is number 1, let's clean up these code. We don't need the did receive memory warning and all of those good stuff. Let's delete that. We don't need to use that thing yet. Alright, so all we have to do here is make an outlet from the table view to our code. So right click, drop it, and here we use a table view and connect it. Alright, so then we have an outlet for our table view. Sounds good? Alright, now in order to tell, now what are we trying, the question is, what are we trying to display here? Yeah, we are trying to display an array of apps to the table, right? So we need that apps. I'm sorry, yeah, we need that app. So let's have a var called apps equals to tib apps dot get on apps, like that. And then we have apps is an array of app. Now the question is how we can communicate with this TableView. How can we put these apps into the TableView? And to do that, we have to implement something we call a UITableView data source. Now this UITableView data source, it is a protocol that we have to implement, that we have to conform to. If you don't know about protocol, that's fine. In this one, we will get over that. But over the long term, I really encourage you to know about protocol, about delegates, all of those design patterns in iOS, and that will really help you. In Total iOS Blueprint, I will help you to do that too. So in UITableView data source, it is a protocol. Basically, it requires us to implement some methods. Number one is we have to tell the TableView that how many sections are there inside this table. Right? Because the TableView has different sections, so we have to tell the TableView that how many sections are there inside your TableView. Number two, we need to tell the TableView that for each of the section, how many rows are there inside that section. Right? For each of the section, how many rows are there inside that section. So for this example, we have the context app, and each of the section, we have the name, right? So for each section here, we have two names, which is two rows. There we go. Now, for our app, we just have one single section because we don't want to divide our images into different sections, right? And then the rows here will become the numbers of the apps. Makes sense, right? Lastly, we have to tell the TableView that for each of the cell, for each of the row, what does it look like? So we have cell for row and index path. That is the last method that we have to implement. So don't worry about it yet. Let's implement the first two methods. So I will create, let's go over here. Oops. Over here, let's create an extension for AppsViewController. This is a UITableView data source, like that. And then inside this thing, all it says is this is an extension of the AppsViewController. It conforms to the UITableView data source protocol. And if you hold the command key, click into the UITableView data source, and then you will see that this is a protocol, all right, and has three methods over here. Number one, public func TableView number of rows in section, and then cell for row index path, and then number of sections in TableView. Other methods are just optional. Alright, so let's go over here, each method at once. Number of sections in the TableView. So here I will just return 1 because our app just have one section. Number 2 is the, let me make some room here, number of rows in the section. So here I will return apps.count. Okay. So apps.count. Let me open up the the full editor, the standard editor, so that we have a lot of space. Now, the last method that we have to implement is cell for row at index path. Okay, so what is that index path? Let's talk about that in just a moment. So, TableView, cell for row at index path. TableView, cell for row at index path, like that. Okay, so I will typing in the code, just 3 lines of code, and then we'll explain. So if you notice that this method here, it asks for a cell, it gives us an index path, and then return us a UITableViewCell. We have to return a UITableViewCell. The question is, what is that index path? So let's go over the slide. The index path, it is an object in ours. It is just a type that has 2 information. Number 1, the section index. So which section is it inside the TableView, right? So if it is the H section right here, then it is going to be 0, 1, 2, right? And if it is John Appleseed here, the section is 0. And then the second piece of information of an index path is the row index. So for John Appleseed, it is 0, 0 because the section is 0. The row inside that section is also 0. Makes sense, right? And then the B, the section is 1, this row is 0. H, this section is 2, the row for Anna is 0. And then Daniel, the section is still H, so it is 2. And then the row is 1 because it is the second row inside the H section, right? So now inside our app, because we have only one section, so the section is always 0, right? So that is that. Now let's type in the code because it is asking us to return for us a UITableViewCell. So I will type in let cell equals TableView dot DQ reusable cell with identifier. Now, do you remember that identifier? We just have that, right? Inside our main storyboard, we have a prototype cell. And then for this prototype cell, we assign an identifier here to be app cell. Now, pay attention that you must have this identifier correctly as like that. Okay, so I copy paste right here. If you spell it wrong, then your app will crash. I see a lot of people ask that question, so pay attention of that, be careful with that. And then let's paste in the string. It is a string called identifier. And then I will ungrab it like this. Okay, now what is this thing, right? The question is, what is that thing? TableView DQ reusable cell with identifier. So what it is TableView. What it does is, if you see all of these things, right, inside our app, we have 11 apps. But what happens if we have 12 apps? What happens if we have 1 million apps or 1 million posts, 1 million images to show onto the screen? Right? But Apple engineers is really smart about that, because now if we have 1 million images, there's no way that we can show it at once, because if we put everything inside the memory, it will crash, because the memory can only store like 1 or 2 gigabytes for our app max, right? Not to mention that iOS is a multitasking environment, so it has a lot of apps running at the same time. So what happens is the TableView, it has a prototype cell. Because if you look at the cells, all of the design, it has very much the same design, right? Even if for our app, it has the same design. So that's why this prototype cell would be kind of like a prototype, kind of like a frame to design from. So for this prototype cell, the idea is we don't want to try to show everything on the screen, because it will take a lot of memory. The idea is we only show the cells on the screen when it is available. So if the cells is over the top or below the bottom here, it will get discarded, gets destroyed. Okay, so let's say this John apple seed here, if I scroll it up, then it will get destroyed. And all of the cell below here, it hasn't been created yet. So that is how we will save the memory. And then here's the secret. The secret is every time we show a new cell, every time this cell for row index path is called, it means that there will be a new cell that gets created. Then the cell will be generated, will be created from the prototype cell, and then will be shown on the screen. Okay, so that is why we call it the queue reusable cell. Now, what it means is it has kind of like a queue, so it means like a line of cells waiting for us below here. Okay, so it has a new cell below here, will be created when we scroll up. All right, so that's why we create a DQ reusable cell. Lastly, let's return the cell right here, and then because this cell has a property called a title label, text label, yeah. So I will have an app to be apps, which is our apps over here, right? And then I will do apps subscript index path dot row. And then we do cell dot text label to be dot text to be app dot name. Okay? Oops, this text label should be like this. So we option change that, because this text in the label, it may not appear. Now this text label for just the basic cell, it is by default. So now it's time for us to run the project and see how it looks like. So here's our project so far. Let's run it. Alright, so this is our app. But hey, where are our cells, right? Now what happens, we did connect this thing to the main storyboard, right? But what happens is we never tell the TableView that this class is going to be our data source, to be its data source. So inside view.load, we have to tell TableView.dataSource equals to self. So we tell that, hey, TableView, this class right here, AppsViewController, is going to be your data source. So let's view and run the project and see how it looks like. Let's see. There we go. We have 11 cells here if I count correctly, and we have these beautiful cells. Now, it is not that beautiful, but we do have everything logically correct, right? So that's step number 2, create our AppsViewController. Let's go into step number 3. Step number 3, we want to have our project looks beautiful like this, right? We have our complete project looks beautiful like this. So how can we do that? Step number 3 is we need to customize the TableView cell. So we'll pause this project, stop it, and then go over the main storyboard. Let's customize this TableView cell right here. So for this TableView cell, it is now basic, but we want to change it into custom. And then we want to change the size inspector. We have the TableView cell row height. Let's change that into 375. Okay, there we go. You know what? I will change it into 376. Okay, there we go. So that we have this thing to be a square. And then because we want to have an UI image, right? So let's search for UI image view, drag it like this, because it's now inside the cell. You see, a TableView cell has a content view, which is the root view of the cell, right? And then we have inside that is an image view. Now this image view, let's apply auto layout to the screen. So auto layout, uncheck the constraint to margin, 0 to the top, 0 to the left, 0 to the right, and 0 to the bottom. And then we update the frames, just like this. Then let's have this image, change it into something like 8, okay? And then I will use aspect fit, just like that. Beautiful. Now, the next thing we'll need to do is our label right here, the title of the app. So let's have UI label, drag it to the screen, like this guy. And then let's change the text of this guy. So we have the font here into custom, veneer next, right? And then the style, let's use demi bold, 21, done. All right. I will change this thing into this thing called View Newsreader app with collection view, UI collection view, which is a thing really beautiful and powerful. It is kind of more advanced, but so much more flexible than TableView, and we'll cover that in just a moment into UI in Total Eyes Blueprint. Now I want to have this thing to be 2 lines, because if you look at this thing, it had 2 lines. So let's use 2 lines over here. So we change it into 2 lines like that, drag it below here. We have 2 lines like that, and then I will make it kind of like cheating a little bit over here like that, so that we have 2 lines and 16 to the bottom, 8 to the left. Looks beautiful. Let's change the color to white, because later on I will show you how we can have this like this shadow right here. Very beautiful. All right, so let's apply auto layout for this guy too. So we have over here, uncheck the constraint to margin, right, left, bottom, update the frames, oops, and then I also have a width over here. So all I did is I Control Z, so I will not update the frame. So I will have Control drag into the cell itself, and then we have a width constraint. All right, and then let's update the frames, just like that. All right, so cheating a little bit for this width, but it's fine. Okay, so there we go. Now that's step number 3. Customize our TableView cell. Let's go into step number 4. Is we need to subclass UITableViewCell, because this is a UITableViewCell class. We have to create a new class so that we can populate data. We have some customized UI inside that cell, right? So I will have over here, right click, new file, attach class. It is a subclass of UITableViewCell, and for the class, let's call this thing AppTableViewCell. Next, put it here, create. There we go. So that is AppTableViewCell. Let's delete all these things. We don't need to use that. Make it like this. Make some room. Here we go. Now let's go into the main.storyboard. Over here, I will change the subclass of this app cell into our, over here, AppTableViewCell. Okay, so all I did is select this app cell, and then over the identity inspector, we changed the class of the custom class to be AppTableViewCell. Alright, awesome. Next up, let's open up the assistant editor, change it into Nino and AppTableViewCell like this. Okay, and then let's connect some IB outlet and IB action into the screen. So we have just two things. Number one is our image. Control drag over here. Let's call this thing AppImageView. Connect it. Next up, we have our label. Control drag over here, called app name label. Boom. There we go. Now the question, pop question. What is this AppTableViewCell trying to display? Yeah, it's trying to display an app. So we have a var app over here, which is our public API called app. And it has to be optional and explicitly ungrabbed because we don't initialize it, right? We will use the AppsViewController to pass this app into this class. Alright, now I want to use a property observer right here so that anytime this thing gets set, then we'll call a method called updateUI. This updateUI is a function that we are going to write here called updateUI. Right? So inside this update UI, all we did is, number one, we changed the app image view.image to be our UI image with the name of app.image name. Right? And then we do app name label.text to be our app.name. There we go. Alright, let's go back into this thing. So we have, all we did is we have two IB outlets, and then we connect those with the app, and then we update UI, right? Whenever this app gets set. So the question is, how does this AppsViewController knows about that AppTableViewCell? That's step number 5. Step number 5 is we have to populate data into our TableViewCell. We have to populate the data into the TableViewCell. How can we do that? Well, inside this thing, whenever we create a new cell, whenever we decode a reusable cell, we create a new one here. And by default, it is a UITableViewCell. It means that we can cast it down as a AppTableViewCell. Right? We can cast it down as an AppTableViewCell. Like that. And then instead of doing the text label, we will do cell.app to be app, which is this thing. Right? So this cell right here is an AppTableViewCell right there. It has an app, and all we did is pass that app into the AppTableViewCell. Alright, let's build the project and see how it looks like. That's step number 5, my friend. Let's see how it looked like. Come on. It doesn't look even close. What happened? What happened over here? So do you see that text right here, and we do have the images, right? We do have the images. So what happens is the table view, it doesn't know how we can scale the size of the cell. Now, if you go over the main storyboard over here, click into the cell, the app cell, And then over the utilities panel, you see that this is a UITableViewCell. This we have, let's select the TableView right there. It says dynamic prototype. It means that the cell is dynamic. It means that you can have any kind of UI you want. It means that it can have any kind of height you want. So in order to make sure that our height is right, I know that a lot of people have this problem with TableView. It is a struggle for me too when I just learn about TableView. So here's the secret. The secret is, number one, you need to auto layout it correctly. So what it means is you need to tell auto layout correctly what is the height of this cell, right? So we don't have the height of this image yet because the height of this, the size of this cell, the height of this cell, it will scale according to the height of this image, right? So because this image, it connects to the edges of the screen, and so let's have this height to maintain our aspect ratio. All right, so because the image here has 4 constraints, right? Top, left, bottom, and right. And the left here and the right, it will make sure that the width of the image is always the same width as the screen. And we want to make sure that it is a square too. So we have an aspect ratio constraint, so that the height is always the same as the width. That is not enough because we have to programmatically tell the TableView that, hey, I want you to scale the size of your row, like what I tell auto layout, dynamically. So how can we do that? Very, very simple. Just go into the view load of the AppsViewController. We do TableView, the estimated row height to be 376, which is the standard, like the default one, right, for our cell. And then we do TableView.row height to be UITableView automatic dimension. It means that, hey, TableView, scale the row here, the height of the row, according to what I tell auto layout. All right. So now, if we run the project now, it should look okay. It should work now. So here's our simulator. There we go. We have our app completely beautiful. All of these beautiful UI. I love this app. And then there we go. See that? Now, if you look at our project, we have this label. It's kind of like blending into the screen a bit. If inside our complete project, we have this little shadow. So finally, as a bonus step for you, I want to show you how to do that. So let's do that. Pause that thing. Goes back into the UITableViewCell over here. Inside our update UI, I would do here, I would change app name label dot layer, which is a CH layer of the view, of any view, dot shadow color. Let's change the shadow color to be our UI color dot black dot CG color, because we are dealing with the layer here, so we need a CG color. Next up, after we change the shadow color, let's change the shadow offset. So app name label dot layer dot shadow offset to be UI color. I'm sorry, this is a CG size with a width of 0 and height is 0. All right, and then let's change the radius of the shadow. App name label dot layer dot shadow radius to be 6, so that we have a pretty good, like it will span around the text like that. All right, so shadow radius. Next up, the last thing we'll do is shadow opacity. So app name label dot layer dot shadow opacity to be 1. All right, so let's build the project and see how it looks like. Finally, our effort so far, my friend. This is your app photos gallery. Beautiful images, beautiful labels, and beautiful text.
Alright my friend, that is how you build a photos gallery app with TableView. I hope that you learned a lot in this episode. I share with you the 5 steps to build a photos gallery app with TableView.